Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be ranking my top 10 surprising movies of 2025. Further ado, let's get straight into it. Starting off with some honourable mentions for me, my first honourable mention I have is Hell of a Summer. Hell of a Summer, I didn't really expect much from this, and it really surprised me. Another one, Marty Supreme. This movie really didn't catch my eye, unfortunately, but the trailers looked not kind of my thing, but when I watched this movie, it was amazing. I loved Mighty Supreme. Black Bag, another movie that I was like, it could be good, but could be bad. This was a great movie. I really enjoyed Black Bag. Sinners is another honorable mention for me. Didn't really expect much. I didn't really like the trailers. They were like, it looked okay, but another amazing movie for me. And another honorable mention I have, Novocaine. Novocaine, I thought was going to be a dumb comedy movie. Really bloody good, to be honest. It was a really good movie. Now, on to my top 10. Going in at number 10, I have is Companion. Going into Companion, I almost had zero hype. The trailers I saw looked okay at the best. Kind of silly, a little goofy, and honestly not very compelling. I expected a forgettable movie at best, maybe something that would end up being bland or overly ridiculous. But as soon as I watched it, I was completely blown away. The humour landed perfectly, and the cast were genuinely enjoyable. Jack Quaid was a standout. He brought a charm and charisma that made his character memorable and added a lot of energy to the film. Sophia Thatcher also delivered an amazing performance, following up her work in Heretic with another solid, captivating turn. What really surprised me was how this movie played with the audience's expectations. The trailer hinted at some ideas, but left the core of the story hidden, which made the actual experience even more enjoyable. By the end, I was laughing, invested, and honestly a little shocked at how good the movie turned out to be. It's a perfect example of why trailers don't always tell the full story and why some films can surprise you in the best way possible. My number 9 for me I have is Good Fortune. Good Fortune was a massive surprise for me. Honestly, the trailers made it look kind of dumb and like a movie that might not work at all. It seemed lightweight, silly, and not the kind of thing I'd expect to enjoy. But from the very start, the movie completely flipped my expectations. It was an absolute blast, full of humor, charm, and moments that genuinely made me laugh out loud. The cast was stacked and really elevated the material. Keanu Reeves brought his signature cool energy, Seth Rogen delivered perfectly timed humor, Aziz Ansari had the kind of quirky charm that works so well on screen, and he did a fantastic job directing as well. And Keke Palmer and Sandra Oh both added a lot of heart and personality. Watching the movie, I realized how wrong I had been to judge it based on the trailer. It wasn't just fun, it was a superficial way. It had clever moments, great pacing, and a lot of unexpected depth in the interactions between the characters. By the end, I found myself grinning and genuinely impressed, completely caught off guard by how entertaining and well-made this movie was. Good Fortune proved the trailers can be deceiving at sometimes. The most surprising gems are the ones you initially underestimate. There we go, got the word. I really enjoyed Good Fortune. Number 8 for me, I have is The Naked Gun. I have to admit, going into The Naked Gun, I wasn't expecting much. I've never been a fan of the original Naked Gun franchise. It wasn't really around my time. And the humor always seemed a little too dated or silly to me. So when I saw the trailer, I didn't get excited. In fact, I assumed it would be another throwback comedy that might feel out of touch, like a Zoolander 2, for example, or just awkward. But I could not have been more wrong. From the first scene, the movie had me laughing in ways I didn't anticipate. The jokes landed perfectly, timing was impeccable, and the absurdity worked so well for me. I found myself completely drawn in. Liam Neeson was unexpectedly hilarious, playing his role with a perfect mix of seriousness and deadpan comedy, while Pamela Anderson's return was a fun, nostalgia touch that added charm. The movie leaned fully into silliness, and rather than feeling dated, it felt fresh and genuinely funny. For someone who didn't know much about the franchise or what to expect, it was a delightful surprise, a perfect example on how films can exceed your expectations when embraced in full style. Yeah, I really enjoyed The Naked Gun. I definitely recommend this movie. Number 7 for me, I have is Clown in a cornfield. When I first saw the trailer for Clown in a Cornfield, I assumed it was going to be a dumb, generic killer clown movie. Something that might be fun in a mindless way, but nothing memorable. The trailers looked pretty standard for a horror, giving off the very cheap scares and predictable jumps, but the movie completely surprised me. There was so much more depth and creativity than I expected. Eli Craig's direction was impressive, bringing tension, clever scares, and a visual style that made the film stand out from a typical slasher affair. The story had more substance than I anticipated, with characters that felt real and stakes that kept me invested. It wasn't just scary for the sake of scares, it had genuine moments of suspense and even horror that caught me off guard. By the end, I was genuinely impressed and excited that Clown in the Cornfield proved that horror can still surprise and engage, even when it seems like it's following familiar formula. I left wanting more from the director and hoping for similar horror movies in the future. And I would love another movie of Clown in a Cornfield. I think I would love that. My number 6 for me is actually a really surprising movie, The Housemaid. The Housemaid was one of the biggest surprises to me in 2025. Going in, I had zero hype. The trailers looked awful, bland, unappealing, and honestly a little off-putting. And I was fully expecting the movie to be boring or forgettable. But as soon as I watched it, I was pleasantly shocked. It wasn't a flawless movie by any means, and I wouldn't call it the best of the year, but it was completely exceeded my expectations. The story was engaging, the pacing worked, and there were performances that really stuck with me. I went from assuming this movie would probably end up being near my bottom of the rankings to really deserve it comfortably in my top 60 of the year. Sure, there were a few issues here and there, but they never really took away from my overall enjoyment. The final product turned out far more satisfying than I anticipated, making it a surprisingly solid watch and another reminder that trailers can sometimes mislead you completely. Really fun movie, I've got to say. Number 5 for me, I have is Caught Stealing. Caught Stealing was an absolute surprise for me in 2025. The trailers looked okay, nothing spectacular, just sort of fine. And while I liked the cast shown, I didn't expect there was going to be anything special. But the movie turned out, it was a bloody blast from start to finish. Austin Butler was phenomenal, fully embodying his character and bringing so much energy and charisma to the role. Bad Bunny was a fun addition, adding a unique flavour and keeping things fresh, while Vincent D'Onofrio and Liev Schreiber were fantastic, rounding out a strong ensemble cast. The script was clever, the pacing tight, and the story kept me engaged throughout. What really surprised me was how entertaining and well-crafted it was. The movie became one of my favorite surprises of the year. From action to humor to character moments, it delivered way more than I expected and left me genuinely impressed. My number 4, another horror movie we have is Heart Eyes. Heart Eyes was another movie that completely caught me off guard. Going in, the trailers looked just okay, not bad, but nothing that seemed must watch. I wasn't expecting much and thought it might be a forgettable movie. Or mediocre movie, sorry. But the movie ended up being far more engaging and enjoyable than I anticipated. The performances were strong, with the cast bringing a charm and an energy that the trailer didn't fully convey. The story unfolded in ways that was surprisingly clever, with moments of humour, heart, and unexpected depth that made the film stand out. I found myself genuinely invested in characters and entertained by the plot, which was a pleasant surprise considering my initial low expectations. Hard Eyes is a perfect example of a movie that looks average in trailers, but delivers far more in execution, and has easily earned its place as one of my surprises of 2025. My number 3 I have is Roofman. Roofman was a big surprise to me in 2025. The trailers I saw looked fairly mediocre, nothing that made me think this movie would stand out or be particularly memorable. I went in with low expectations, assuming it would be a decent but forgettable watch. However, as soon as I started watching, I realized it was far more engaging than I expected. The movie had a great balance of humor, action, and character moments, which made it surprisingly compelling. The story unfolded in ways that kept me invested, and the performances brought an energy that elevated the films beyond what the trailer suggested. It was one of the movies where the marketing really undersells the final product. The film had so much more depth, cleverness, and entertainment value than I anticipated. Roofman ended up being one of my highlights of the year for me, proving that sometimes the best surprises come from the films you almost overlook. My number 2 for me, another horror movie we have, The Long Walk. The Long Walk completely exceeded my expectations. The trailers looked okay, nothing spectacular, just enough to make a mildly curious, but it didn't hint at the depth, tension, and emotional stakes that the movie would deliver. From the very beginning, I found myself drawn into the story, fully immersed in the characters' struggles and the intensity of the plot. The pacing was excellent, keeping me engaged throughout, and the performances were strong, making each character feel grounded and real. What really surprised me was how gripping the film was. I went from expecting a decent watch and came out genuinely impressed at how much it resonated with me. It's a perfect example of a movie that looked average in trailers but delivered so much more in execution, leaving me both entertained and thoughtful by the end. The Long Walk is easily one of my favourite movies of the year for sure. And my number 1 most surprising movies of 2025 I have is Warfare. Top of my list, Warfare. Completely shattered my expectations. The trailer gave off a standard action war movie vibe. Good, but nothing that made me think it would be extraordinary. So I went in with a pretty low expectation. But the film turned out to be intense, smart, and thrilling in ways I didn't anticipate. Every aspect from the direction to the performances and the action sequences were carefully crafted and executed, making it far more impressive than I expected. The story kept me invested, the tensions never let up, and the characters had real stakes that made me care about what happened next. I was genuinely surprised at how much the movie delivered far beyond what the marketing suggested. Warfare wasn't just an enjoyable action movie, it was a complete package of excitement, cleverness, and intensity, earning its spot as my most surprising and satisfying movie of 2025. It's a perfect example of how sometimes trailers completely undersell a film, making the final experience all the more rewarding. Warfare, I'm going to be honest, I've never been a massive fan of war films. It doesn't really catch my eye. And with Warfare, I was like, I'm going to give this movie a shot. It's from A24. It's written by Alex Garland, which I've liked his movies, and I like the cast in this. And I watched this movie, and I was like, holy shit, this is actually really good. Like, extremely good. And I think it's a great movie. I definitely recommend this movie if you haven't seen it. I think it's a really compelling story and a really important story to tell. And I think it's one of my most surprising movies. It is my most surprising movie of 2025. But thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel. It'll be a massive help. Thank you for watching. Take care. Goodbye.